She murmured the king's name, but it was only the human guard who resembled him. Night of the Feast of the Three Moons arrived. The palace glowed with 1,000 lights. Lanterns hung from every wall. Music filled the air. Nobles from across the empire gathered in the great hall, dressed in silk and gold. They laughed and drank and pretended that everything was normal. But under the surface, everyone felt the tension. Everyone knew that something was about to happen. Princess Yuna stood on a balcony above the great hall. She wore a silver dress that shone like starlight. A crown of white flowers sat upon her head. She looked beautiful, but her eyes were hard. Tonight was not about beauty. Tonight was about survival. "Are you ready, Your Highness?" Jisoo asked. The captain stood beside her, wearing her dress uniform. Under her jacket, she carried 2 hidden knives. "As ready as I will ever be," Yuna said. "Where is Dawn?" "In the west corridor. He will enter when you give the signal." Yuna nodded. She looked down at the crowd below. She saw Lord Hugh near the center of the hall. He was a tall Valari with cold silver eyes and a thin smile. He wore black robes trimmed with gold. He looked calm, confident. He had no idea what was coming, or did he? Yuna pushed the doubt away. There was no time for doubt now. She walked down the stairs and entered the great hall. The crowd parted for her. Nobles bowed as she passed. She smiled and nodded, playing her part perfectly. Inside, her heart was pounding. She reached the center of the hall and raised her hand. The music stopped. The crowd fell silent. "My friends," Yuna said, her voice clear and strong. "Tonight we celebrate the Feast of the Three Moons. Tonight we honor our ancestors and our traditions. But tonight, I also wish to honor someone else." Lord Hyuk watched her with narrow eyes. She could feel his gaze on her like a knife. 3 months ago, we lost our king. My brother. My blood. Taiho was more than a ruler. He was a dreamer. He believed in a future where all peoples, Valari, human, and others, could live together in peace. She paused. Some of you did not share his dream. Some of you thought he was weak. Some of you, she looked directly at Lord Hyuk, wanted him dead. A gasp ran through the crowd. Lord Hyuk's smile did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Your Highness," he said smoothly, "these are serious words. Do you have proof of such claims?" "I have more than proof," Yuna said. "I have a witness." She raised her hand again. This was the signal. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. A figure walked in. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark eyes. He wore white robes, the ceremonial clothes of the Valari royal family. A silver crown sat upon his head. He walked slowly, calmly, like a king returning home. The crowd gasped. Some nobles fell to their knees. Others screamed, "It cannot be. The king. The king lives. Taiho." Lord Hyuk's face went pale. For one moment, just one moment, he looked truly afraid. That was all Yuna needed. "Lord Hyuk," she called out, "you murdered my brother in this very palace. You thought no one saw you, but you were wrong. And now justice has come for you." Lord Hyuk's fear turned to rage. He pulled a knife from his robes and pointed at Dawn. "That is not the king," he shouted. "That is a human. A trick. A lie." But the damage was done. The crowd was in chaos. Nobles were shouting and pushing. Lord Hyuk's yards tried to move forward, but they were blocked by the confused crowd. Dawn kept walking. He moved through the chaos like a ghost, his eyes fixed on Lord Hyuk. "Stay back." Lord Hyuk screamed. "Kill him. Kill the human." 3 of Lord Hyuk's guards broke through the crowd. They ran at Dahan with their swords drawn. But humans were fast. Faster than Valari expected, Duhan ducked under the first sword. He grabbed the guard's arm and twisted. The guard fell with a cry of pain. The second guard swung at Duhan's head. Duhan stepped aside and struck the guard's throat with his open palm. The guard dropped his sword and fell to his knees, choking. The third guard stopped. He looked at his fallen friends. Then he looked at Duhan. Duhan did not move. He just stood there, calm and steady, waiting. The guard dropped his sword and ran. Lord Hugh backed away. His face was twisted with fear and anger. "This is madness. You cannot do this. I am a lord of the High Council." "You are a murderer," Una said. She walked toward him slowly. "And tonight, you will answer for your crimes." Lord Hugh pulled a small device from his pocket. "If I cannot have the throne, then no one will. I have bombs planted throughout the palace. One press of this button and we all die." The crowd screamed. People ran for the doors. But Una did not move. "You are lying," she said. "Am I?" Lord Hugh laughed. "Do you want to find out?" A voice came from behind him. "I already did." Lord Hugh spun around. Captain Jisoo stood there, holding a bag full of wires and metal pieces. "Your bombs were easy to find," she said. "My team removed them hours ago. You really should not have trusted Valari workers to hide them. They talk too much when they drink." Lord Hugh's face went white. He looked at the device in his hand. Then he threw it aside and pulled his knife again. "Then I will kill you myself," he screamed, lunging at Una. He never reached her. Duhan moved faster than anyone could see. He caught Lord Hugh's arm and twisted it behind his back. The knife fell to the floor. Duhan pushed Lord Hugh down to his knees and held him there. "It is over," Duhan said quietly. Lord Hugh struggled, but he could not break free. Duhan's grip was like iron. Una walked forward and picked up the fallen knife. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked at Lord Hugh. "My brother believed in mercy," she said. "He believed that even the worst people could change. I want to believe that too. But you took him from me. You took my family. You took my future." She raised the knife. Lord Hugh closed his eyes, waiting for death. But the death did not come. Una lowered the knife. "No, you do not deserve a quick death. You will stand trial. You will face the people you betrayed. And you will spend the rest of your life knowing that you failed." She turned away. "Take him to the prison and find his allies. I want them all in chains by morning." Jisoo's team moved forward. They grabbed Lord Hugh and dragged him away. He screamed and cursed, but no one listened. The crowd slowly calmed down. The music did not start again. No one was in the mood to celebrate. Yun. I looked at Don. He still stood in the center of the hall, wearing the king's clothes. But now everyone could see the truth. He was not the king. He was just a human guard. A man who had risked his life for a princess he barely knew. "Thank you," Una said softly. Doan bowed. "I only did what was right, Your Highness." "You did more than that. You gave my people hope. You showed them that humans are not weak. You showed them that my brother's dream is still alive." She reached out and took his hand. The crowd gasped. A princess holding hands with a human? It was unheard of, but Una did not care. "Tonight, you saved my empire," she said. "I will not forget that. None of us will." Dohan looked at their joined hands. Then he looked at her face. And for the first time, he smiled. "I told you, Your Highness. Sometimes hope is enough." Outside, the three moons shone bright in the purple sky. And somewhere in the palace, a new chapter was beginning. She murmured the king's name, but it was only the human guard who resembled him. 2 weeks passed after Una's recovery. The princess grew stronger each day, but so did the whispers in the palace. The servants talked about the human guard, who looked like the dead king. The nobles talked about the princess who had called for him. And in the dark corners of the council chamber, other plans were being made. Una sat alone in her private study. It was a small room filled with books and star maps. Her brother had loved this room. He would spend hours here, reading old texts and dreaming about the future. Now Una came here when she needed to think. A soft knock came at the door. "Enter," she said. The door opened, and an old Valari woman walked in. Her name was Bora. She had served the royal family for 60 years. Her violet skin was wrinkled, and her golden eyes were clouded with age, but her mind was still sharp. "Your Highness," Bora said, bowing slowly. "I have news." "What news?" Bora looked around the room, as if checking for hidden ears. Then she moved closer and spoke in a low voice. "I have found something, Your Highness. About your brother's death." Una's hands tightened on the arms of her chair. "Tell me." 3 months ago, on the night King Taiho died, I saw something. I did not speak of it because I was afraid. But now I am old. I have little time left, and I cannot carry this secret to my grave." "What did you see, Bora?" The old woman's voice trembled. "I saw Lord Hyuk leaving the king's chamber. His hands were covered in blood." Una felt cold. Lord Hyuk was one of the most powerful nobles in the empire. He controlled the eastern provinces and had a seat on the High Council. He had always been polite to Una, always smiling, always bowing. But behind his smile, she had always sensed something dark. "Are you certain?" Una asked. "I am certain, Your Highness. I saw him with my own eyes. He walked past me in the hallway. He did not see me. I was hidden in the shadows. But I saw him, and I saw the fear in his face." Una stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the 3 moons were rising. Their light painted the gardens in silver. "Why did you not speak before?" she asked. "Because Lord Hyuk has spies everywhere. If I had spoken, I would be dead. And so would anyone I told." Bora paused. "But you are the princess. You are the only one who can stop him." "Stop him?" Una laughed bitterly. "How?" "He has the council on his side. He has soldiers. He has gold. I have nothing but a sick body and a dead brother's memory. You have more than you know, Your Highness. You have the love of the common people. And you have," Bora hesitated. "I have what?" "You have the human." Una turned around. "Dohan? What does he have to do with this?" Bora's old eyes were bright. "Lord Hyuk is planning something, Your Highness. My sources tell me he will make his move at the Feast of the 3 Moons. He will try to take the throne. How? I do not know the details. But I know this: he expects you to be alone. He expects you to have no allies. He does not see the human guard as a threat." A thin smile crossed Bora's face. "That is his mistake." Una was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Bring me Captain Jisoo, and bring me Dohan. Tell no one else." Bora bowed. "Yes, Your Highness." An hour later, the 4 of them sat together in the small study. The door was locked. The windows were covered. Only a single candle gave light. Jisoo listened to Bora's story with a hard expression. When the old woman finished, Jisoo shook her head. "This is dangerous, Your Highness. If Lord Hyuk learns that you know, he will kill you before the feast. Then we must make sure he does not learn," Una said. "That is why I called you here. I need your help. Both of you." She looked at Dahan. He had been silent the whole time, listening carefully. "You want to use me," he said. It was not a question. "Yes." Una did not look away. "Lord Hyuk does not fear humans. He thinks your people are weak. He thinks you are beneath his notice. But you have something no one else has: my face. Your face. Yuna nodded. If Lord Hyuk sees you at the feast, dressed in royal clothes, walking among the nobles, he will think my brother has returned, even if only for a moment. And in that moment, his plan will break. Jisoo stepped forward. Your Highness, this is too risky. If Doan is caught pretending to be the king, the council will execute him. They will call it treason. I know the risks, Yuna said. That is why I am asking, not ordering. Doan, you do not have to agree. This is not your fight. This is not your empire. Doan was quiet. He looked at the candle flame for a long time. Then he looked at Yuna. Your brother believed in my people, he said slowly. He believed we could change things. He died because of that belief. If I walk away now, what does that say about humans? What does that say about me? It says you are wise, Jisoo said. It says you want to live. There are things more important than living, Captain. Doan turned to Yuna. I will do it. I will be your bait. Yuna felt something warm in her chest. It was not love, not yet. It was something simpler. It was trust. Thank you, she said softly. Jisoo sighed. If we are doing this, we need a plan. A real plan. Not just putting Doan in fancy clothes and hoping for the best. I agree, Yuna said. That is why I need you, Captain. Your team must be ready to move when Lord Hyuk strikes. How many soldiers does he have? At least 50 in the palace. More outside the walls. And how many humans do I have? 20. Maybe 25 if I call in favors. Then, we must be smart, not strong. Yuna leaned forward. Lord Hyuk expects to win through force. We will win through surprise. They talked late into the night. They made plans and backup plans. They studied maps of the palace and lists of Lord Hyuk's allies. By the time the first sun rose, they had a strategy. It was not a good strategy. It had many holes. Many things could go wrong, but it was something. And for the first time since her brother's death, Yuna felt hope. As Doan stood to leave, she caught his arm. You do not have to do this, she said again. You can still walk away. He looked at her with those dark, steady eyes. I know, Your Highness. But I want to. Your brother was right about humans. We do have hope. And sometimes hope is enough. He bowed and left the room. Yuna watched the door close behind him. Then she turned back to the window. The 3 moons were setting, and the suns were rising. A new day was beginning. In 5 days, the feast of the 3 moons would arrive. In 5 days, everything would change. She did not know if they would win. She did not know if she would survive. But she knew one thing for certain. She was not alone anymore. And that made all the difference. She murmured the king's name, but it was only the human guard who resembled him. 3 days passed. Princess Yuna's fever broke on the morning of the 4th day. She woke up weak but alive. The healers said it was a miracle. The servants said the gods had answered their prayers. But Yuna remembered something else. She remembered a face in the darkness. A face she loved. A face she had lost. She sat up in her bed and looked around the room. Sunlight came through the tall windows. 2 Velari handmaidens stood near the door, waiting to serve her. Bring me water, Yuna said. Her voice was rough from days of fever. One handmaiden hurried to obey. The other stepped closer and bowed. Your Highness, the council wishes to see you when you are well enough. They have many matters to discuss. Yuna closed her eyes. The council. Those old nobles who had never liked her brother. Those cold faces who wanted power for themselves. She did not want to see them, but she had no choice. Tell them I will meet them tomorrow, she said. Today I rest. The handmaiden bowed again and left. Yuna drank the water slowly. Her body felt empty, like a shell washed up on a beach. but her mind was full of questions. She remembered the fever dreams. She remembered calling her brother's name. And she remembered someone answering. Had it been real? Or just a dream? She looked toward the door. Who guarded my chamber while I was sick? The remaining handmaidens seemed nervous. Several guards, Your Highness. Valari and humans? Humans? Yuna leaned forward. Which humans? I do not know all their names, Your Highness. But one of them stood at your door every night. A tall one. The other servants. They talk about him. What do they say? The handmaiden looked down at her feet. They say he looks like King Taio. Yuna's heart beat faster. So it was not just a dream. There was someone. Someone real. Find him, she said. Bring him to me. The handmaiden's golden eyes went wide. Your Highness, is that wise? He's just a human guard. The council would not approve of. I did not ask for the council's approval. I asked you to find him. Now go. The handmaiden ran out of the room. Yuna waited. She tried to calm herself. It was foolish to feel this way. Her brother was dead. No one could bring him back. But the memory of that face in the darkness stayed with her. She needed to see it again. She needed to understand. An hour later, the door opened. A human man walked in, followed by the nervous handmaiden. He was tall, with dark hair and dark eyes. He wore a gray uniform with a silver moon badge. He stopped a few steps from her bed and bowed deeply. Your Highness, he said. His voice was calm and steady. You called for me. Yuna stared at him. Her breath caught in her throat. It was like looking at a ghost. He was not Valari. His skin was not violet, but a warm brown. His ears were round, not pointed. But everything else, the shape of his face, the line of his jaw, the way he held himself was exactly like Taio. Even his eyes had the same steady light. The same quiet strength. What is your name? She asked. Doan, Your Highness. I serve in the Human Diplomatic Corps. Doan. She tested the name on her tongue. It was a human name, strange to her ears. But it did not matter. She could not stop looking at his face. You stood at my door while I was sick, she said. Yes, Your Highness. It was my duty. I spoke to you. In my fever, I called you by another name. Dalhan's expression did not change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Yes, Your Highness. You called me, Taio. The room was silent. The handmaiden held her breath. Even the dust in the sunlight seemed to stop moving. I thought you were him, Yuna said softly. For a moment, I truly believed my brother had returned. I am sorry, Your Highness. I did not mean to. Do not apologize. She raised a hand to stop him. You did nothing wrong. It was my own heart that deceived me. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she asked, Did you know him? My brother? No, Your Highness. He died before I came to the palace. But I have heard many stories. He was a good king, a wise king. My people respected him. He respected humans too, Yuna said. He believed your people would change the galaxy. He said humans had something special, something that older races had lost. What did he think we had? Yuna smiled sadly. Hope. He said humans still had hope. Doan was quiet. He did not seem to know how to respond. Yuna continued. The council hated him for that. They called him weak. They said he was giving too much power to outsiders. And then, her voice broke. And then he was killed. I am sorry for your loss, Your Highness. Everyone is sorry. But no one does anything. Bitterness crept into her voice. The killers are still free. They walk these halls. They sit in my council. They smile at me and wait for me to fail. Doan looked at her directly. It was bold for a guard. especially a human guard. But Yuna did not mind. She saw something in his eyes that she had not seen in a long time. Not pity, not fear, but understanding. Your Highness, he said slowly, if there is anything I can do to help you, I will do it. Why? You do not know me. You owe me nothing. Your brother wanted humans and Valari to be allies. If I can honor that wish, even in a small way, then I will. Yuna studied him. She looked past the resemblance to her brother and saw the man beneath. He was young, perhaps only a few years older than her, but he had the eyes of someone who had seen hard times, someone who had learned to survive. You are different from other humans I have met, she said. How so, Your Highness? You do not look at me with fear. Most humans are afraid of Valari. They think we are cold and cruel. Some Valari are cold and cruel, Dohun said. But so are some humans. That does not mean all of us are. For the first time in months, Yuna laughed. It was a small laugh, weak from sickness, but real. You speak your mind, she said. My brother would have liked you. I hope I would have liked him too, Your Highness. The door opened, and Captain Jishu stepped in. She looked at Dohun with sharp eyes, then bowed to Yuna. Your Highness, I apologize for the interruption. I heard that one of my guards was summoned. I wanted to make sure everything was in order. Everything is fine, Captain, Yuna said. I only wanted to meet the man who watched over me while I slept. Jishu nodded slowly. Dohun is one of my best guards. He is loyal and skilled. I can see that. Yuna looked at Dohun one more time. You may return to your duties, but I may call for you again. Dohun bowed. I am at your service, Your Highness. He left with Jishu. Yuna watched them go. The handmaiden came closer. Your Highness, are you well? Your face is flushed. I am fine, Yuna said. But she was not fine. Something had changed inside her. She had seen something in that human guard, something that reminded her of everything she had lost, and she knew, deep in her heart, that their paths would cross again. Outside, Jishu walked beside Dohun in silence. When they were far from the princess's chamber, she spoke. You need to be careful. The council is already watching you. They do not like that a human looks so much like their dead king. I cannot change my face, Captain. No, but you can stay out of sight. Stay quiet. Do your job and nothing more. Dohun nodded. But even as he agreed, he knew it was too late for that. The princess had seen him. She had called for him. And whatever came next, he could not simply walk away. He looked back toward her chamber, just once. Then he turned and walked into the shadows of the palace. She murmured the king's name, but it was only the human guard who resembled him. The palace of the Valari Empire stood tall against the purple sky. It was made of white stone that glowed softly in the light of 3 moons. Inside, the halls were quiet. Too quiet. The servants walked with their heads down. The guards stood still like statues. Everyone knew that Princess Yuna was sick, and no one knew if she would live. Dohun stood at his post outside her chamber door. He was a human, one of the few allowed to serve in the Valari royal palace. His people had come to this world only 5 years ago. Earth had sent diplomats, soldiers, and workers to build friendship with the ancient Valari Empire. Dohun was just a guard. Nothing special. At least, that was what he believed. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and a strong jaw. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held a steady calm that made others trust him. His hair was short and neat. He wore the gray uniform of the human diplomatic corps, but tonight he also wore a Valari badge, a silver moon pinned to his chest. It meant he had earned the right to guard the royal family. The door behind him opened slightly. A Valari healer stepped out. Her skin was pale violet, and her eyes were large and golden. She looked tired. How is she? Do-hun asked in a low voice. The healer shook her head. The fever is strong. She calls out names in her sleep. Names of the dead. She paused and looked at Do-hun with a strange expression. She called for the king. Do-hun felt a cold feeling in his stomach. King Taiho had been dead for 3 months. He had been murdered in this very palace. The killers were never found. Since then, the empire had been in chaos. Princess Yuna was the only heir, but she was young and had no support from the noble families. Now she was sick, and the future of the empire hung by a thin thread. Should I call for Captain Jisoo? Do-hun asked. No, stay at your post. She needs guards she can trust. The healer walked away, her long robes dragging on the stone floor. Do-hun turned back to face the empty hallway. He tried not to think about the princess inside. He tried not to think about the dead king. But his mind would not be still. He had never met King Taiho. The king had died before Do-hun arrived at the palace. But he had seen paintings of him. He had heard stories. King Taiho was wise and kind. He treated humans with respect when many Valari looked down on them. He believed that Earth and the Valari could be true allies. His death had been a great loss, not just for his people, but for humans too. An hour passed. Then too, the palace grew darker as the moons moved across the sky. Do-hun's legs ached from standing, but he did not move. This was his duty. Then he heard a sound from inside the chamber. A soft voice. A whisper. He turned his head slightly, listening. The voice came again. It was weak and broken, like dry leaves in the wind. Taiho. Do-hun's heart stopped. He knew he should not enter. He had no permission. But the voice sounded so lost, so full of pain. He pushed the door open just a little and looked inside. The princess lay on a large bed covered in white silk. Her skin, usually a deep violet, was now pale and gray. Her silver hair spread across the pillow like spilled water. Her eyes were closed, but her lips moved. Taiho, please, do not leave me. Do-hun stepped inside without thinking. He moved to the side of her bed and looked down at her. She was beautiful, even in sickness. But it was her pain that struck him most. She was alone. Her brother was gone. Her people did not support her. And now she was fighting death itself. Her eyes opened suddenly. They were golden, like all Valari, but there was a strange light in them. A light of confusion and hope. Taiho? She whispered. Do-hun froze. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The princess reached up with a trembling hand. Her fingers touched his face. They were cold, but gentle. You came back, she said. Tears fell from her eyes. I knew you would come back. Do-hun finally found his voice. Your Highness, I am not. But she did not hear him. Her eyes closed again, and her hand fell back to the bed. She was asleep once more, lost in her fever dreams. Do-hun stood there for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. He did not understand what had happened. Why had she called him by the king's name? Why had she looked at him like that? He stepped back slowly and left the chamber. Outside, he leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. His hands were shaking. A voice came from the shadows. What happened? Do-hun looked up. Captain Jisoo stood a few steps away. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a serious face. She led the human guards in the palace and reported directly to Earth's ambassador. She thought I was someone else, Do-hun said. Who? The king. King Taiho? Jisoo's eyes widened. She walked closer and studied Do-hun's face. Then she nodded slowly. I have heard the servants talk, she said. They say you look like him. The same height. The same face shape. The same eyes. That is impossible. He was Valari. I am human, and yet she saw him when she looked at you. Jisoo crossed her arms. This could be dangerous, though. If the wrong people hear about this, they might think you are trying to take his place. I would never, I know. But others do not know you like I do. She looked toward the princess's door. Say nothing about this to anyone. Understand? Doan nodded. Yes, Captain. Jisoo walked away, but she paused at the corner. Get some rest when your shift ends. Tomorrow will be a long day. She disappeared into the darkness, leaving Doan alone with his thoughts. He looked at his reflection in a polished metal panel on the wall. He saw his own face, a human face. But now he also saw something else. A shadow of a dead king. A ghost that he did not ask for. Inside the chamber, Princess Yuna slept and dreamed of her brother. She did not know that the man who had stood beside her bed was not him. She did not know that a simple human guard had worn his face for just a moment. But somewhere in her fever, she had felt something. A warmth, a presence. A hope. And that hope, small as it was, kept her heart beating through the long night. The years passed like waves on a shore. Gentle, constant, unstoppable. Taiho returned to his farm on Erith 7, but his life was no longer simple. Visitors came from across the galaxy to meet him. Students, diplomats, historians, and ordinary people who had heard his story. They wanted to shake his hand, hear his voice, and see the man who had changed everything. At first, Taiho found it overwhelming. He was not comfortable with fame. He preferred his wheat fields and his quiet mornings. But slowly, he learned to accept it. If his story could inspire others to be kind, then the attention was worth it. Yura visited whenever she could. Despite being the busiest person in the galaxy, she always found time for Erith 7. She would arrive in her royal ship, but she never dressed like a queen during these visits. She wore simple clothes and walked through Taiho's fields, helping him harvest wheat or feed the chickens. You know, Taiho said one evening, as they sat on his porch watching the sunset. I never thought my life would end up like this. Yura smiled. How did you think it would end? Quietly, alone, forgotten. He laughed softly. Instead, I have a treaty named after me, and a queen who helps me pick vegetables. The universe is strange, Yura agreed. But I think it leads us where we need to be. As the years went by, the Taiho Accord proved stronger than anyone expected. Wars became rare. Trade flourished. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was better. Much better. And everywhere. Taiho's story was told. In schools on Valorian worlds. Children learned about the human medic who saved their queen. In human colonies, his name was spoken with pride. He was proof that their small species mattered. That one human could stand against an empire and change history. Statues were built. Books were written. Movies were made. Taiho became a legend, not because he wanted to be, but because the galaxy needed him to be. But time is cruel to humans. Taiho grew older. His hair turned completely white. His hands, once steady enough to save a princess, became shaky and weak. Walking became difficult. Breathing became harder. At 93 years old, Taiho knew the end was coming. He sent a message to Yura. Just a few words. I think it is time. I would like to see you. Yura dropped everything. She left a council meeting with 7 planetary governors. She canceled a treaty negotiation that had taken months to arrange. Nothing mattered more than this. She arrived on Erith 7 within hours. Her ship landing softly in the wheat field that had grown back strong and tall. Taiho was in his bedroom, lying in a simple bed by the window. The evening light was golden and warm. Outside, his farm spread out in peaceful rows. Yura sat beside him and took his hand. It was thin now, fragile like paper, but she held it as gently as he had once held hers. You came, Taiho said. His voice was weak but happy. Of course I came, Yura replied. I will always come. They sat in silence for a while, watching the light change as the sun set. The sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple. Do you remember? Taiho said slowly, when I promised to show you an ocean? Yura felt tears forming in her eyes. I remember. I never did. He smiled sadly. I am sorry. Yura squeezed his hand. You showed me something better. You showed me what kindness looks like, what courage looks like, what a good heart looks like. Those things are more beautiful than any ocean. Taiho looked at her. His eyes were cloudy now, but somewhere deep inside, they still held that same gentleness that had saved her life so long ago. Are you happy? He asked. With your life? With everything that happened? Yura thought about the question. She thought about her years as queen, the peace she had built, the wars she had prevented, the billions of lives that were better because of the choice she made to find him. Yes, she said. I am happy. Because of you. Taiho smiled. It was a peaceful smile, full of acceptance. Good, he said. That is all I wanted to hear. He closed his eyes. Yura, he said softly. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me, she replied as the last light of the sun faded from the sky. Taiho took one final breath. And then he was still. Yura sat with him through the night. She did not cry. Valorians lived for centuries, and she had seen many people die. But she had never felt a loss like this. It was as if a part of her own heart had stopped beating. When morning came, she stood up and walked outside. The wheat field stretched before her, golden and endless. Somewhere, a bird was singing. I will not let them forget you, she whispered. I promise. And she kept her promise. Queen Yura ruled for another 400 years after Taiho's death. She became the longest-serving and most beloved leader in Valorian history. Under her guidance, the galaxy entered a golden age of peace and cooperation, but she never forgot the human who had made it all possible. She built a Taiho Memorial Hospital on Era 7, right next to his old farm. It became the best medical center in that sector of space. Saving thousands of lives every year, she established the Taiho schools on every major planet, teaching children about kindness, courage, and the power of helping others. The schools had no entrance exams, no fees. Anyone could learn. She created the Taiho Foundation, which provided aid to refugees, victims of disasters, and anyone in need. It grew to become the largest charitable organization in galactic history, and in every Valorian temple, in every human church, in every meeting hall across the galaxy. His story was told. The story of a simple medic who found a wounded princess, who carried her through fire, who asked for nothing and gave everything, who proved that one small act of kindness could echo through centuries and change the fate of billions. On the anniversary of his death, every year for 400 years, Yura returned to Era 7. She walked through his wheat field. She sat on his porch. She watched the sunset from his window, and she talked to him. The new school opened on planet Kira 9 today, she would say. They named it after you, of course. The children love it. Or, there was almost a war between the outer colonies, but we stopped it. We used the principles you taught me. We chose kindness over cruelty. Or sometimes, she would simply say, I miss you. When Yura finally died, at the age of 732, she gave one final order. Her body was to be cremated, and her ashes were to be scattered in Taiho's wheat field. I want to be where he was, she said. I want to rest where it all began. And so she did. The galaxy mourned the loss of their great queen. But they also celebrated. They celebrated the story of Taiho and Yura, the human and the alien, the medic and the queen. Two people from different worlds who had changed the universe with nothing but kindness. Centuries later, their story is still told. In classrooms and temples, in movies and books, in bedtime stories whispered to sleepy children. It is the story of humanity at its best. Not conquering, not fighting, not proving their strength. Just one person, looking at another person in pain, and choosing to help. That is the legacy of Taiho. That is the legacy of kindness. That is the true power of humanity, and it will echo through the stars, forever. On the small planet of Eris 7, the wheat field still grows. The hospital still heals. The farm still stands, preserved as a museum for visitors from across the galaxy. And on quiet evenings, when the sun sets and the sky turns golden, some people say they can still see them. An old man and a glowing queen sitting on a porch, watching the light fade together. Two friends, two souls, two hearts that changed everything. Forever.